Mr. Leach, only one more film before Spiral drops tonight.
Trust me, I know, and I'm ready. Let's get this over with.
But for the final chapter, we do need to spice this trap up a bit. Film this review naked.
What? So Saw 3D, the final chapter, tells the story of a fake Jigsaw survivor getting put through the ringer while Hoffman stops at nothing for his revenge on Jill. Welcome back to the Saw review series, guys. Spiral will be viewed by me tonight. So this is a nice little crescendo for what is a painfully long journey that we have been on in this Saw review series. So Saw 3D, the final chapter, will be the last review before Spiral. As I stated in the past couple, I have reviewed Jigsaw back when it came out. Thoughts have not changed whatsoever. Otherwise, I would do an updated review for it, but it would just be redundant. So this is going to be the last one before the new one tonight. Saw 3D, the final chapter, was interesting because there was a lot of hype behind this back when it first came out. Saw was a series that was coming out every single year, every single Halloween. A lot of the new age horror fans were eating it up. A lot of the old age horror fans were not. And Saw the final chapter was like, all right, the final chapter. Is this going to be like every other horror series where the final chapter is never the final chapter? Spoiler alert, yes. Or is this actually going to be this epic concluding chapter that's going to tie together all 357 storylines going on throughout this entire franchise in an epic way? Well, it damn sure ain't the latter. Let's talk about it. So starting with the positives for Saw 3D, I do like the central game in this one as well, where we're testing Sean Patrick Flanery, one half of the Boondock Saints, where he is a fake Jigsaw survivor. He created this story about this trap that he endured, and he becomes this self-help guy, this novelist, this TV personality. He achieves fame through lying and through mocking the pain of actual victims. Just like with the last movie, pretty reasonable explanation for why this guy would be in a trap. So there's one side of it that I like. The other side of it is that I like Sean Patrick Flanery, and the third side of it is that I do like how he kind of makes him pay for creating this story, especially at the very end of this game where he has to endure the trap that he created to see if that would actually work in order to save his wife. Spoiler alert. Fails like a motherfucker. And I also think that throughout the movie, the other additional traps that we get are pretty awesome. They would both be on my top 10. So you have the one that opens up this movie that's kind of removed from the plot completely, where you got this love triangle, you got two guys that are strapped into these buzz saws where they can push it towards each other, and then you have the chick that they've been fucking the whole time that is up in the ceiling, and there's a saw trap that is going to be cutting her in half. If they don't kill one or the other, she's going to die in a certain time limit. And so I like the whole storyline with that, where, you know, the guys are going alpha male, they're trying to kill each other, and she's talking to the one guy that she loves. Then as soon as he starts to lose, she's like, oh shit, yeah, I really loved you all this time. And then the guy just fucking, fuck it, we're breaking up with you, bitch. Ah!
What are you doing, you fucking asshole?
I think we're breaking up with you, Tina.
That whole thing is just, it's funny to me. That whole love triangle aspect of that trap, I actually really enjoy it. And then you have the one that I think is probably the best trap in this entire movie, which is the one with the late Chester Bennington, rest in peace, where it's a car trap with a bunch of neo-Nazis, where he's glued to the car. There's a dude he's going to run over. If he doesn't get out of the car in time, there's a guy who's going to get his jaw and his arms ripped off by the car zooming out of there. And then you have his girlfriend underneath that's going to have her face torn to shit whenever the tire drops on her. Pretty gnarly stuff. And it's one of the traps that you enjoy the most when it fails. And that's all I got to say positive about this movie. Aside from that, everything in this is just same old shit. It's the same old run-of-the-mill, going through the motions Saw movie. They don't attempt to do anything above what they've done in the past couple of movies. They don't try to do anything interesting or new, or try to make anything about this final movie genuinely stand out as like this great final chapter. it's just, you could tell they weren't making as much money. So they were like, all right, fuck it, this is the last one. That's all the motivation you feel in here. Beyond that, they put a lot of storylines and a lot of new characters in here that are brand new. They don't have any kind of ties to previous things that we've seen in this franchise, which is a real weird thing to do for a final movie. Final is usually when you bring all the stops out. You pull all these characters in from previous movies and you tie them all back together and you tie up everything, all the loose ends. This introduces a new cop that has this secret tie to Hoffman that we've never seen before. It introduces Sean Patrick Flannery, who is the main victim of the main trap of the movie that we've never seen before until now. That's really the main focus here, is just another chapter that they decided to cut off at the very end in the last 5 minutes to tie everything back together. If you had removed that ending from this movie, they could have easily done 2 or 3 more, and I think that was probably the plan when this was originally written, but they saw the box office, saw 6, and said, yeah, we're done. The movie just feels cheap. The production value is among the lowest of this entire franchise, which is kind of shocking because they were never really all that high production in the first place. The acting quality, especially from new cop guy who has ties to Hoffman, is atrocious. The pink blood ruins the Carnage candy in this movie. I mean, aside from the visual aesthetic of the traps that I do like in this, the gore is abysmal in this. I don't know who the hell created the corn syrup for the gore effects in here, but you did a fucked up job. It literally looks like hot pink Kool-Aid just spilling out of people, and it destroys any impact that these traps have. And if you have anything to fall back on with a Saw movie, it's the traps and the gore. When you fuck that up, oh, you are in for an ass kicking. I don't really think that all 3 of the storylines that they're going for in this mesh very well, and none of them are really all that interesting. I enjoy Sean Patrick Flannery for the lesson being there, but again, new character, new storyline, no impact for a final movie. So you got that whole thing. You have Jill seeking asylum, seeking immunity for telling everybody who Hoffman is and trying to seek safety since he escaped her bear trap. And then you have Hoffman, who is trying to stop at nothing to get to Jill. So all 3 of those storylines meshing together in scattered scenes throughout this movie don't really mesh for a great final chapter. I also have to call complete bullshit that Jigsaw would ever allow his wife to die. I don't buy for a second that Jill would have ended it by the end of this movie. It just doesn't make any sense to me. If we're supposed to believe that this guy has the foresight to do everything that he has done in this franchise up to this point without calling bullshit, I refuse to believe that that same level of intellect could not have saved his wife. Especially when you have the whole fact about the next twist that I'm going to get into, where there's this other guy that if anything happens to her, you need to do this. Why the fuck wouldn't you just say, hey, this is probably going to happen to her. Do this now. Prevent that from happening. Is it cool that we finally get to see the bear trap go off? Yes, but it just makes no logical sense to me that that character would be allowed to die in the game of Jigsaw. I've never understood that. And then you have the final twist of this movie, which is the most obvious twist that this franchise has ever given us, which is that Cary Elway's Dr. Gordon was in on it the whole time. He was the other secret apprentice, the true secret apprentice. He was the teacher's pet. This is the next Jigsaw. As soon as this motherfucker was announced to be in this movie, that twist was obvious. As soon as you see him show up in the scene where they're having that little, AA meeting with all of the victims, and he's got that sinister, I'm gonna sit in the back of the room in the fucking shadows like a dramatic creep and just do that slow clap. Oh, we're glad to be part of your DVD. It's like, dude, you're menacing as fuck. I hate Cary Elway's acting in this franchise, if I haven't made that clear enough. But when you're so menacing and you bring this guy back for the first time in 7 movies, no shit! I wonder if he's going to be in the ending somehow. Game over. And to wrap up all of my negatives with the one that's pretty much obvious, and which is why they should just stop doing 3D horror films. 3D effects age like dog shit. And 3D effects do not make for very good repeat viewings because very few people have the technology at home to be able to enjoy 3D effects. That makes for what may be one single cool experience in the theaters, depending on how well you execute these effects, but it's going to add to a ton of diminishing returns every single time your fan watches these movies. It doesn't make any sense to me, aside from just having a gimmick and maybe being able to upcharge the tickets on the theater a little bit to ever use 3D effects in a horror film. When you watch this film, it really does hurt the impact. And like I said, with the fluorescent pink blood, if you cannot lean on how great your traps are and how effective your traps are, you are really skating an uphill battle. So overall, guys, this is in competition for the worst of this franchise. I have to kind of formulate my thoughts before I say definitively that it's the worst, but it's certainly in the conversation. I think that the central plot of the trap is an interesting concept, just like I did with the last movie with the insurance executive, but everything else surrounding that is just same old, same old. It's not an impactful final chapter. The fluorescent pink blood and the production value and the 3D gimmick don't add anything. They, in fact, take everything away from the impact this movie possibly could have had, whatever little amount that was. Hoffman still don't give a shit, and when you have the final twist, it's like, okay, whatever. So if you're a Saw fan and you want to see how the final chapter of this story wraps up before you get into the other final chapters that we're inevitably going to have, I guess check this thing out. But for everybody else, or if you're really on the fence and not loving this franchise, gonna have to tell you to skip this one too. So what do you guys think of Saw 3D, the final chapter? Are you a fan of this one? Is this your least favorite? Do you like the 3D gimmick? Do you hate the 3D gimmick? Do you buy Jill being a victim by the end of this movie? And do you like the twist with Dr. Gordon being there all along? Let me know your thoughts, and look forward to Spiral, which will be a review dropping late tonight after I get back from the theater. So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button so that you can check out tonight's review and everything else that I do regarding this series. There will be a ranking. I might rank some traps, do a top 10. So subscribe. You can check all that stuff out. Thank you for watching it again, and as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.